Trinidad and Tobago, the Syrian Lebanese community, the Chinese community, the East Indian community. But when it comes to African people, we tend to entertain a multitude of different identities, such as Caribbean, Afro-Trinidadian, Trinbagonian, West Indian, Trini, Black. And there doesn't seem to be one single identifiable category through which we could all place ourselves. Some of us call ourselves Negro or mixed. But we are one people, one community, one African community, one aim, one goal, one destiny, one direction. Now think, we are African people, the largest consumer group, but the smallest producer group. We occupy the largest residential areas, but we own the least land. We work in the most buildings, but we own the least real estate. We buy the most food, but we own the least supermarkets. We eat out the most, but we own the least restaurants. We wear the finest clothes, but we own the least clothing stores. We buy the most fabric and cloth to buy clothes, but we hardly own any clothing stores. So this negative economic condition is a reality that we must face, and to you, our young people in particular, there is no way that you can be pleased or satisfied with this kind of situation. Therefore, the Black Caucus movement has the objective to build, as an example, a mega mart, Black-owned, Black-controlled, where our people can pool their resources, unite, and spend our money within a Black economy that circles and recycles and makes ourselves rich and wealthy. There has to be an educational shift in a paradigm that has kept our younger generation paralyzed by a negative kind of consciousness. All of you students, you would have learned or heard in social studies that Christopher Columbus came in 1498, that the French came in 1783 with the cedula of population, that the British came in 1797. Just the other day we celebrated the bicentennial of the Chinese community who came here in 1806, and that the East Indians came in 1845. Social studies and history teaches us of the origin and the arrival of all of the different peoples of the different ethnic groups in this country. But not one textbook that we read could even tell us when or where African people arrived from in this country. How is it that this country is 50% African or more, but yet still you have never even been told in school, primary nor secondary, the year that African people arrived here? And it is 1592 that Captain Antonio de Berrio, who was the governor of Trinidad, wrote to the King of Spain requesting 400 enslaved Africans to come to this country to develop the land. And those Africans did not come straight from Africa, but they came from Spain. They were African Muslims called Ladino from an area in Spain called Cordoba or Cordova that had over 3,000 mosques. And that's the beginning of our heritage. But you don't even learn that in the school system. So there are three stages of African history. The first stage is called the classical period. The second stage is called the Holocaust period. And the third stage is called the Reconstruction period. Now, during the classical period of African history, we are taught that the first schools on this planet were built in Africa. The first libraries were built in Africa. The first universities and colleges were built in Africa. We built 72 pyramids in Egypt and 32 pyramids in the Sudan in a perfect north-south alignment between the North Pole and the North Star. In Africa, we had underground buried civilizations in Ethiopia dating back to beyond 35,000 years. It was African people, just like you and I, Black people, who wrote the alphabet, who designed the number system, who gave science, mathematics, art, music, philosophy to the entire world. There were African tribes dating back thousands of years, such as the Dogons in Mali, who had knowledge of the star systems and the galaxies long before white people were even on the earth. And then even when the European emerged, they were living in the hills and cave sides of Europe, while we African people were building science centers, universities, and promoting scholarship. It was in Africa that in the pyramids we have the Metuneta, or the hieroglyphics, which today is where the Europeans science from for physics, chemistry, biology, and mathematics. All of this, beloved, is part of our glorious heritage. But it was from 640 to 322 BC that there was an exodus of Greek and other European students into Africa to learn from and get that knowledge of the sciences and mathematics from us. So those of you who are in secondary school or even university, when you learn of Isaac Newton's 3 laws of motion, or the Pythagoras theorem in mathematics, or basic geometry or algebra or arithmetic, or when you learn of scientific laws such as the laws of motion, the laws of the transfer of energy, and you read about Charles and Boyle and Socrates, all of that knowledge, all of that wisdom was available in Africa. And the Europeans